where do you have Scorpio in your chart? Like, is your sun in Scorpio or something like that? And it's because I'm sort of like fulfilling a purposeful role in the things that I do online. And since they're not meeting me in person, they're not getting the full, realm of my personality proclivities, right? They're just seeing my purpose-oriented self. That's what the midheaven represents, So I come off a lot like darker than I really am online. When you meet me, I'm a lot warmer, but at least, I don't know, I think again, what is my ascendant say? Sun expression. But this is about purpose, midheaven starts the 10th house. It's the cusp, of the 10th house. So, in a quadrant house system. If you go whole sign house system, you probably know this, your midheaven can actually be floating around the 11th house or the 9th house. But we're not going there right now. I don't use whole sign system. It's good for other stuff. I'm kind of talking about psychological description here when it comes to astrology. Your birth chart represents just your innate set of predispositions for responding to the world, and your set of perceptions, So, it may come off unconscious, but since my midheaven is in Scorpio, I see my purpose as something that's scorpionic, that has to do with like taboo subjects, Because Scorpio is all about digging deep into like places where other people don't want to go to. And so a Scorpio midheaven can make their public image into something, or their reputation. It's about reputation as well, how people see you when you're on your purpose. Scorpio, for example, can give you a dark persona, professional persona, right? Whereas if it's Gemini, your Gemini MC, you're going to come off a lot more like quirky and scattered and like funny. You're probably going to have a humor about you in the workplace. You're probably going to delve into subjects that are maybe not as deep, but you seek variety among things rather than depth into one or two things. So like I tend to go deep. A Gemini MC might like to spread themselves thin over lots of different areas of interest. And they see that as being very purposeful, as being like a jack of all trades kind of person, So your purpose is directly opposite home. It's kind of like home life, work life is one way to think about it. But also, it's about like who you are behind closed doors, home, and who you are out there in the world, your public image.
Okay.
So if your sun is here, you're very concerned with success, very success oriented. If your moon is in the 10th house, you live at work. You find your sense of home at work, because moon is about where you feel at home and where you can rest and process things, come to understand things more deeply, right? So if that part of your psyche is in the area of the 10th house, area of purpose and success, then you probably sleep at work a lot. You overwork yourself. You have a huge task to manage your energy levels. Burnout is very, very common with moon in the 10th house. Some of my best friends have their moon in the 10th house. So yeah, let's move on. Any questions about any of that so far?
I think you're explaining it great.
Okay, awesome. Cheers. So we're moving into the, hate to only have 15 minutes for these two bad boys. 11th house, belonging. So 5th house is about expression and friendships. Friendships you gain when you're outside playing after, after school or whatever, and you're starting to develop a sense for like how to navigate, one-on-one friendships. But really, it's all about like having fun for yourself, right? Opposite that is your greater sense of belonging, not just in friend groups, but in the context of humanity in general. If your sun is here, you're likely to do a lot of volunteer work. You're likely to do a lot of, and Mars too, if you have a lot of like go-get-em kind of energy, heat being put into this part of the chart, you're very giving, you're a humanitarian, you want to take action in the realm of what's good for one and for all, Whereas this is just what you feel is good for you in terms of expression. You're expressing yourself, for fun. 11th house across from that, expressing yourself for all. For one, for all. Yeah. If your moon is there, you just love everybody, Your emotional center is just like out for everyone's taking, So it can cause some friction when that goes wrong. But until then, you really see the best in everyone. You give everyone the benefit of the doubt because you're kind of taking this relationship and that relationship and seeing like what's good in that person, what do they have to offer the world, And so your moon is a deep sense of connection if you let other people access that. And if it's in the 11th house, it's there for other people to access very, very outwardly. Again, we're in the outer world here, So everything in this side of the chart is visible in some sense. This is the visible realm. This is the private realm at the bottom of the chart. I have several YouTube videos. I have several YouTube videos on the 12th house. It's one of my areas of specialty. I have a stellium here, which is a large combination of planets in the 12th house, as well as in the 6th. So I have like the balance of like getting physically injured and getting existentially injured.
Oh.
So I don't want to like give this word karma any significations that I don't intend to. It's more about nature unfolding as it will, whether you like it or not. It's about everything that the first 11 houses cannot account for. So this, start right here. Mid heavens high.
Oh, wow.
So in some sense, everything from 1st to 11th is physical. It's just kind of drawing the significations around it. Tangible, conscious, visible. Just a few words to get across the point that in some sense you can see and understand all of these things. You can't really see or understand any of this. Like, this is an area of life, the 12th house, where the normal rules of language and logic don't apply. It's the metaphysical realm, it's the spiritual realm, it's the thing that encompasses all things. So astrologers tried to, over the course of astrology's development over the last 6,000+ years, try to account for all the areas of life that we as humans have to deal with over the course of our lives in this chart. And then, they got to the 11th house and they're like, well, we know there's something else going on. There's a lot of other things tying it all together. So this is about like consistency, the inner workings of nature. It's about the realm outside of what we can observe, So that's where, when you think of the word karma, you don't think of a physical thing. You don't think of a thing that it can instill some fear, in you, because you may feel isolated in the path that God has chosen for you or something. So 12th house is about isolation. It's about confinement. It's about you alone with your own thoughts and meditating and letting whatever comes come. That's just out of your control, whether you understand it or not. It's things that show up because that's simply what nature intends. And when I use the word nature, I don't mean physical nature necessarily, but also that. I don't mean human nature, but also that. Don't mean the nature of God or whatever, but also that. It's all things all at once. It's the system of systems, which could be chaotic or totally make sense. So what do we have opposite the 12th house, the 6th house? It's one of the most tangible houses. It's about physical work and labor, about routine, things that are mindless. Like I mindlessly feed my cat. I don't need to think about whether or not I should feed my cat. I know I have a responsibility to feed my cat because I've accepted that responsibility by having a cat. Very simple, like boom, boom, boom. Like I do this, so I have to do that. I live in a house, so I have to pay my rent and my bills, or else I'll be evicted. So when you don't take care of this stuff, it's deeper, more metaphysical, existential problems that come about. Depression happens here. If you don't take care of your physical responsibilities, your health, that has existential, metaphysical implications to it. Your mental health suffers as a result of not taking care of your physical health. Conversely, if you're not consciously taking care of your mental health, your physical health will suffer too. All the themes in each house apply in a converse way to that of the opposite house. Your money, other people's money. Learning, unlearning, right? To connect dots that build a true framework of belief, because you're seeking truth here in the 9th house. Not seeking truth here, you're just learning shit, So you learn stuff, and then in order to know really what's true, you have to unlearn some stuff in the 9th house, right? You can express yourself, but if you're not doing so within like a dutiful, like meaningful role within the greater context of humanity, your sense of belonging lacks, To consciously focus on your sense of belonging and being a humanitarian, doing volunteer work, and doing good for the sake of itself and for no other reason, you're going to gain a lot of outlets for expressing yourself, So opposites serve each other. They don't just attract, they serve each other. Your sense of identity and connection, obviously, we talked about that. So karma, what unfolds? Your self-undoing, nature unfolding, for you, depends on how you manage your duties and responsibilities in the 6th house. So you can't just be all up in here, you got to be right here, too. You can't just be in the head, you got to be out of the head and mindless as often as you're mindful, Mindful of the mindless and mindless of the mindful sometimes, because you don't want to overburden yourself with existential concerns that are outside of your control, because karma is not in your control. I'm not saying we don't have free will. You have a choice to act this way or to act that way at every crossroads in life, So 12th house reminds you of that, but you have to stay grounded, 6th house, Another thing I like to just repeat, again, how does all this work, Don't worry about it. I don't know. Don't get bogged down over mechanism. It's actually, so I'm a adjunct instructor in philosophy, on hiatus at the moment. Might be teaching again next semester, but so in logic we have what's called logical fallacies. They're errors of reasoning. They're like justifications that you make for things that are actually irrelevant to the truth of the matter. So it's not true that X is the case because it makes me feel a certain way. if somebody tries to sell you something and engage your emotions, engage a sense of pity inside of you to guilt you into buying that thing, the fallacy there is appeal to pity. They're saying that this thing is true or good because it made you feel a certain way, right? It's a logical fallacy. How you feel is irrelevant to the truth or goodness of the thing being presented, right? So there's a logical fallacy called appeal to mechanism, where people like to say that astrology is bullshit because they don't understand how it works, like how it is the case that there is a connection between where Venus is in the sky at the time of your birth and what effect that has on your social and romantic personality. We can observe that there is a connection. So the fallacy is that you're claiming that the skeptics, for example, are claiming that astrology is untrue because we can't prove that there's a physical causal connection, mechanistic connection tying the two together. But we don't have a mechanism for proving that it's not the case or that it is the case, apart from just observation and intuition, you know, which your intuition's your innate truth-seeking tool, you know. It's different from emotion, it's different from physical sensation, you know. It has nothing to do with those things, but it may have those things layered on top of it, you know. You may have like emotions that come along with your spidey senses, your sense of intuition, your instinct that tells you this is true or this is false, or like there's something not right about that, you know. And so astrology's been developed for over 6,000 years based on intuitive observations between the connections of celestial bodies and human behaviors and perceptions as we can observe them, you know. But can we actually go into space? Can we go to Venus? And is there like some physical stuff that we can like connect on a string to there, from there to the constellation, and then back to Earth to somebody's brain, and then like say, oh, this is the connection, you know? It just kind of like, how do you expect to prove that or disprove it, you know?
Yeah.
I can tell you that it is a statistical fact that there are more Gemini sun people as stand-up comedians and freestyle rappers than any other sign.
Gemini is?
Gemini, yeah.
Even for rappers?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's kind of the same thing as like stand-up comedy. They're like writing jokes. It's all about wordplay. You know, it's all about like taking words and like writing kind of poetry or prose like in a way that makes the most sense, achieves the result you're trying to, which is either to make people laugh or to create something that's musically fluid, right? So they're trying to create coherence out of chaos, you know. That's what Gemini's doing. It's really hard to do. That's why they come off so bipolar.
It'd be interesting to know if Dave Chappelle is a Gemini and like Eminem is a Gemini.
Yeah.
It would be interesting.
50, I think a few. Yeah, a few of them.
Yeah.
And then several comedians. Look it up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Very
It's all about
interesting.
wordplay and like it's kind of the same form, just a
Yeah.
different context for expressing that formal understanding of language and things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So the houses are areas of life that you can't control. It's just whatever planet, like if you have your sun here in the 12th house and Mercury, you're probably a writer or a poet or something like that. Because the 12th house is a very existentially confusing place, and you don't know how to express your rational mind or your ego personality in a tangible way. It's coming through this intangible, metaphysical, kind of spiritual realm. So you find something like music or poetry to express your ideas and your understanding of reality. And you have a very unique way of forming those things. Because again, like the regular rules of language and logic don't really apply in the 12th house. So you need like some sort of creative outlet to really feel understood, you know, and people to receive it, to feel understood. Existential poetry and psychedelic metal, stuff like that. So anyway, I think that's that's about it. That is my lecture on the astrological houses.
I had a question though.
Yeah, of course.
You were saying if you're off
We
of
can
the-
hang out as long as like they're not kicking us out. I guess.
Yeah, like you want to be as accurate as you can be as far as minutes of when you were born.
Yeah.
So if you're off by 4 or 5 minutes, is the whole reading wrong then?
Not necessarily. We talked a little bit about this last time.
Okay.
This is a whole area of astrology called rectification,
Okay.
where you try to rectify a chart. First of all, you want to do everything you possibly can to get that birth time. And if I mentioned this last time, but if it's not on your birth certificate, you can usually call the hospital or the hospital system, because I had one client whose hospital she was born at actually burnt down.
Oh.
And then she called the hospital system, and they didn't have it in their computer because it burnt down before they took digital records of things.
Oh.
But then her dad ended up finding her birth certificate, and she got it. But yeah, so you can call a hospital. They usually keep record of it, or like the Bureau of Vital Statistics usually keeps it as well. Whenever you have to file your birth certificate. So yeah, it's important because I can look at a chart and tell roughly like how difficult it's going to be to figure out where everything is supposed to be based on like how confident they seem in giving me their range of time that they think they're born in. But as a general rule, if you don't have like a document, people don't know when they were born. Like I have people telling me I was born between 7 and 7:30, and I know that because the show Friends was on the TV and my mom was watching Friends. And so it had to be at that time. I was like, yeah, she was on all kind of drugs, like sitting in a hospital bed. Like, how do you know? And then come to find out, it was 2.5 hours after that. And her rising sign changed 2 signs, which means that she thought she was a Taurus rising when really she was a Cancer rising. So that shifted the house and sign alignments over 2. For everything.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so that gives you a very different way of like understanding your perceptions, you know?
Yeah.
Because like if you have a Cancer rising, you have a very feminine, nurturing way of taking care of your physical appearance and seeing yourself. Whatever sign you have on the cusp of any given house gives you a mode of perception for the things of that house. So you know, 8th house is like about dark crisis, like psychological trouble and stuff like that. If you have Scorpio over here on the cusp, even if you're in quadrant house system and you have like a split, you know, Scorpio starts like right there maybe, and then you got Sag right there, and you have like a little bit of Sag in the 8th house. Like that's okay, you know, if you have a planet here, it's still gonna be a Sag planet. And it's still gonna, but since it's in the sign on the next cusp, you're gonna have some qualities of both houses. You're gonna have some, context in which that part of yourself shows up in both areas of life. Whereas if, Scorpio seems like, dark on dark, Scorpio things, dark crisis things, depths of the psyche, But actually 2 negatives equal a positive in astrology. So Pluto, for example, is that's pretty good. It's pretty good. So if you have, regardless of this, Pluto, if you have Pluto in the 8th house, Pluto is a dark planet. It's about hidden things. And so when crisis happens, your dark things, your dark ways of processing them, and the desires and fears surrounding that crisis become more clear, right? Even if you don't have anything here, this is about your perception, your style of perception. If you have Scorpio, it's like Scorpio is looking into the house of scorpionic things, right? So it's not afraid to enter this dark realm because Scorpio is a style of personality that's already inclined to enter dark realms because they like to go deep, right? Like if you have a Capricorn midheaven, that's thought of as kind of like a very happy place. for Capricorn to be, because Capricorn's very success oriented. This is the area of purpose and chasing success. Capricorn's less fearful about chasing success there, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas like maybe Pisces is going to be a little confused about what its purpose is, you know? Pisces is a more like scattered, like tries to encompass everything all at once kind of energy, very holistic in its way of thinking. That's not always very useful when you're just trying to climb a mountain. It's like you have to choose a mountain and climb it. Like, so earth signs do really well up here, you know, in the midheaven, because they form a grounding for chasing after their aspirations, you know. And then also, I don't think I mentioned this, I'll just backtrack a little bit. Ninth house, you know, connection, this is marriage, this is divorce. And then you learn shit about life. And unlearn shit about life in the ninth house, you know? And then you form a personal philosophy, and you need that in order to find your purpose. You need to find your purpose as you relate to other people and as other people see you in order to have a sense of belonging in the greater social reality, you know?
Yeah.
And then you have to have some sense of belonging and togetherness in order to deal with karma, because you're not in this life alone. You know, you're alone and you're not alone all the time, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is on their own journey,
Yes.
but not every path within that journey is taken in isolation. You know, your journey intersects with other people's journeys at the right times, and like you can help each other along the way. And some, like you let go whenever you naturally have to let go, or part ways when you have to part ways. You know. So karma and dealing with karma, it's very important to have a kind of developed 11th house, to not neglect, you know, people like me who have a lot of stuff going on in the 12th house. I can get bogged down about existential stuff, but a lot of times I find the answers in the house before it, you know, in this, like who am I in relation to other people, and what's my purpose for them, and where do I gain the most, acquire the most liquid gains. 11th house is also about liquid gains, things that show up to you for free, kind of Jupiter type things. Because when you have a sense of belonging with other people, they see your role and they just give you stuff. They're like, yes, you're serving your role, like thank you. Here's money, or here's a place to stay, or here's, you know, here's my energy and my time and my attention, you know. When you have a good relationship with the 11th house, it's very important for karmic development.
Yes.
You know? So we're alone but not alone, something like that. I don't know. I just make stuff up as I go along. So anyway, I'm turning that camera off. But thanks for coming, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, cheers.